Under the vast Montana sky, young Caleb watched his grandfather Silas grip a heavy rifle. The family's Black Angus cattle were being hunted by a fierce wolf pack from Yellowstone. Their legacy was dying and a violent war was beginning. The cold in Montana doesn't just chill your skin, it bites deep into your bones. For 14-year-old Caleb, the silence of the ranch had become a heavy weight. He stood by the gate of the calving pen, his breath puffing out like smoke from a steam engine. In the distance, the jagged peaks of the Rockies looked like teeth against the fading purple sky. Then the silence broke. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a soft, rhythmic crunch of snow. Caleb's heart began to drum against his ribs. He gripped his plastic flashlight, his hands shaking inside his work gloves. He clicked it on. The beam cut through the swirling snowflakes, and for one terrifying heartbeat, he saw them. 2 glowing amber orbs, then 4, then 6. A massive gray wolf stood just 10 feet away. It was lean, powerful, and its eyes held a cold, ancient hunger. It wasn't scared. It looked at Caleb as if he were just another obstacle between it and a meal. The wolf bared its teeth, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. Caleb let out a shaky breath, his legs feeling like jelly. He swung the light wildly, shouting with a voice that cracked. The wolf blinked, turned slowly, and vanished back into the pines like a ghost. The immediate danger passed. Caleb stood alone in the dark, gasping for air. The wolf was gone, but the fear remained, clinging to him like the frost on his jacket. Caleb had survived the first encounter, but the real war was just beginning in the ranch kitchen. The next morning, the smell of strong coffee and fried bacon filled the ranch house, but the mood was somber. Caleb walked into the mudroom and saw his grandfather, Silas. Silas was a man built of grit and old-fashioned values. He had farmed this land for over 50 years, surviving droughts, blizzards, and market crashes. But this was different. On the wooden kitchen table sat a Winchester rifle. Silas was running a cloth over the barrel, his face set in a grim mask. "They took a yearling last night, Caleb," Silas said, his voice as dry as autumn leaves. "Right through the north fence. The bank is already breathing down our necks. We can't afford to lose another head of cattle. If we do, this ranch, the land your great-grandfather settled, will be nothing but a memory." Caleb looked at the rifle. He knew the laws. The wolves were protected. If Silas pulled that trigger, the government fines would be enough to bury them anyway. But Silas was a man of the Old West. To him, a man protected his own. "Grandpa, we can't just shoot them," Caleb whispered. "There has to be another way." Silas looked up, his eyes weary and red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "I've tried the flags. I've tried the loud radios. I've even sat out there with a spotlight. They've learned our tricks, son. They know we're bluffing. A man who can't protect his herd isn't a rancher." The tension in the room was suffocating. It was a clash between the past and the future. Caleb saw the desperation in his grandfather's hands, the hands that had taught him how to ride a horse and fix a fence. He realized that if he didn't find a solution, the man he loved most would risk his freedom, and the animals he respected would pay the price in blood. Silas sighed and put the rifle back in its case. He patted Caleb's shoulder. "Go get your chores done, boy. We'll talk more tonight." Caleb walked out, the weight of the family's survival resting squarely on his young shoulders. But Caleb had a secret weapon in the machine shed, and it wasn't a weapon at all. Caleb's sanctuary was the old machine shed. It was a place filled with the scent of motor oil, rusted iron, and potential. While the other kids in town were playing video games, Caleb was always busy tinkering. That's what Silas called it, mucking around with old electronics. He loved taking things apart to see how the lightning moved through the wires, In the corner of the shed, there was a small wooden crate lined with soft hay. Inside was a tiny fawn that Caleb had rescued 2 weeks ago. He had found her tangled in a barbed wire fence, her leg bloodied and weak. He called her Hope. Every day, Caleb would sit with Hope, feeding her from a bottle and talking to her about his day. The fawn was a reminder that the wild wasn't just a threat, it was something beautiful that deserved to live. But Hope was also in danger. If the wolves could get to the cattle, they could easily get into this shed. Caleb sat on a milk crate, thinking about the wolf from the night before. He remembered how the animal had flinched when he swung his flashlight. It wasn't the light itself that scared the wolf. It was the movement. They think the light is a person, Caleb muttered to himself. If the light stays still, they know it's just a lamp. But if it moves, they think a hunter is watching. His mind began to race. He started digging through the piles of junk he had collected over the years. He found a set of old LED Christmas lights that his mom had tossed out because a few bulbs were broken. He found a motion sensor from a discarded porch light. He even found a blinking turn signal relay from a 1980s Ford pickup truck. He cleared off his workbench and began to solder. He wasn't following a manual. He was following his gut. He wanted to create a device that didn't just turn on, but danced. He wanted lights that would flash in a random, unpredictable way, mimicking the jerky movement of a rancher walking with a lantern. As he worked, he heard a rustle outside the shed window. He looked out and saw a mother deer, a doe, standing at the edge of the woods. She was thin, her ribs showing through her winter coat. She stood there frozen, looking toward the shed. "Is that your mom, Hope?" Caleb whispered. The doe seemed to be waiting. She didn't run. She just watched. Caleb felt a surge of empathy. That doe was trying to survive, just like Silas, just like the wolves. The whole world was just trying to find a way to make it to the next sunrise. He worked through the afternoon, his fingers cramped and blackened by soot. He wired the Christmas lights to the Ford relay and connected the whole mess to an old car battery he had charged up. "Okay," Caleb said, his heart pounding. "Let's see if this works." He flipped the switch. For a second, nothing happened. Then, click, clack, click, clack. The lights didn't just blink. They strobed. They flashed in a chaotic rhythm, red, white, and blue. To anyone looking from the dark, it looked exactly like someone was waving a flashlight back and forth, pacing the perimeter. But then, a spark flew from the relay. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. The lights went dark. Caleb groaned, throwing his wire cutters down. "Come on!" He looked at Hope, who had tucked her head into her flank, sleeping peacefully. He looked at the empty field where the doe had been. The sun was setting again. He was out of time. He had to fix the circuit, or tonight would be the night Silas took the Winchester into the woods. He took a deep breath, calmed his shaking hands, and started over. He simplified the wiring. He insulated the connections with electrical tape. He prayed to any spirit of the Montana mountains that would listen. Finally, he tried again. Click. The lights pulsed. Steady, strong, random. It was a masterpiece of junk and genius. Caleb carried the device out to the south pasture fence. He set it up on a fence post and sat back. The lights danced in the twilight. For the first time in weeks, Caleb felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time. True, honest-to-goodness hope. But a few blinking lights are one thing. Facing a hungry alpha wolf in a blizzard is another. The weather in Montana can change faster than a horse can kick. By 9 o'clock that night, the wind had shifted. A blue norther was screaming down from Canada, bringing a wall of white snow that blinded everything in its path. This wasn't just a snowstorm, it was a whiteout. Inside the house, the power flickered once, twice, and then died. The ranch was plunged into a terrifying, icy darkness. "The electric fence is down!" Silas shouted over the roar of the wind. He was already putting on his heavy wool coat. "The cattle are defenseless. They'll huddle together for warmth, and the wolves will just pick them off like sitting ducks. He grabbed the Winchester. "Grandpa, no, the lights! They run on a battery," Caleb yelled. "I can't see your lights through this mess, Caleb. I'm going out there." Caleb didn't argue. He grabbed his own coat and followed the old man into the storm. The wind felt like a physical wall. It pushed against them, trying to knock them over. The snow was so thick Caleb couldn't see his own boots. They struggled toward the south pasture. The cattle were lowing in distress, a sound that haunts any rancher's dreams. It's the sound of animals that know they're being hunted. Suddenly, Silas stopped. He raised the rifle. Through the swirling white, Caleb saw them. The pack. They weren't ghosts tonight. They were solid, gray shadows moving with terrifying purpose. They had surrounded a young heifer and her calf. The alpha wolf, the one Caleb had seen before, was leading the charge. He was huge, his fur matted with snow, his eyes fixed on the calf. "I've got him!" Silas growled, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Wait!" Caleb screamed. He looked toward his device. It was covered in snow. The flashing had stopped. The battery terminal must have frozen over. Caleb didn't think about the danger. He didn't think about the teeth or the claws. He ran. He dove through the snow, crawling toward the fence post. He could hear the wolves growling. They were so close he could smell them, a musky, wild scent of wet fur and old blood. He reached the device. He wiped the snow away with his bare hands. The cold was so intense it felt like burning. He found the wire. It had snapped under the weight of the ice. He grabbed the two ends of the wire. He didn't have a soldering iron. He didn't have tape. He just held them together with his freezing fingers. Flash! The lights exploded into life. Because Caleb was holding the wires, the current was pulsing through the relay with a new intensity. The light strobed directly into the alpha wolf's face. The wolf recoiled. It let out a sharp yelp of surprise. To a wolf, anything it doesn't understand is a threat. It saw the flashing colors, red, blue, white, and it saw the human figure standing right behind them. The alpha hesitated. It looked at the calf, then at the lightning in Caleb's hands. The alpha let out a low bark and turned away. The pack followed. They retreated 10 yards, then 20. They sat in the snow watching, waiting for the light to stop. Caleb stayed there, his hands turning blue, his body shivering so hard he thought his teeth might shatter. But he didn't let go. Caleb was holding the line, but the battery was dying, and the alpha was getting brave again. The storm reached its peak. The wind was a constant scream. Caleb's fingers were losing all feeling. He knew he couldn't hold the wires forever. His body was starting to shut down from the cold. The alpha wolf noticed. It began to creep forward again, inch by inch. It realized the lightning was small. It realized the human wasn't moving. Silas was still 20 yards away, his rifle aimed. He was torn. If he shot the wolf, Caleb was safe. But the ranch was gone. If he didn't shoot, he might lose his grandson. "Caleb, get back here!" Silas roared. Caleb didn't move. He looked at the alpha wolf. He looked into those yellow eyes. "Please," Caleb whispered, his voice lost in the wind. "Just go. There's enough room for all of us." At that exact moment, a new shape appeared in the storm. It was the doe. She stepped out from behind the hay shed, standing directly between Caleb and the wolf pack. She wasn't running. She was stomping her hooves. She was a mother protecting the place where her fawn was safe. It was a miracle of nature. The wolves were confused. Here was a boy with lightning, a man with a stick that smelled of burnt powder, and a deer that refused to be prey. The entire ecosystem of the ranch had shifted. The alpha wolf stood up tall. He let out a long, mournful howl that seemed to pull the very soul out of the wind. Then he looked at Caleb. He didn't look hungry anymore. He looked defeated. The alpha turned and trotted into the whiteout. The pack followed, disappearing one by one into the storm. They were heading back to the deep woods, back to the mountains where they belonged. Caleb let go of the wires. The lights went dark. He fell into the snow. Silas was there in a heartbeat. He dropped the Winchester in the snow. He didn't even look at it. He scooped Caleb up in his massive arms. "I've got you, boy. I've got you," Silas sobbed. He carried Caleb back to the house, his tears freezing on his cheeks. He wrapped Caleb in every blanket they owned. He stoked the wood stove until it glowed red. He rubbed Caleb's hands until the color started to come back. As the sun began to rise over a world buried in fresh, white peace, Silas sat by Caleb's bed. He looked out the window. The cattle were all there. Not a single one was missing. "You did it, Caleb," Silas said softly. "You saved the ranch. And you saved me from making a terrible mistake." Caleb woke up a few hours later. He was sore, and his fingers tingled, but he was alive. He walked out to the machine shed. He opened the door to Hope's crate. The fawn stood up, her leg much stronger now. Caleb led her to the gate. Standing in the yard was the doe. She looked at Caleb. She looked at Silas, who was standing on the porch. "I'm putting this in the attic, Caleb," Silas said. "In the back, under some old boxes. I don't think we're going to be needing it ever again." He looked at the device Caleb had built, the mess of Christmas lights and truck parts. "We're going to build a better version of this," Silas promised. "We're going to build enough for the whole valley. We're going to show them how a Montana rancher really protects his land." Caleb smiled. The weight was gone. The war was over. The ranch wasn't just a business anymore. It was a sanctuary. It was a place where a boy, an old man, and the wild world could all live under the same big sky, in a peace that was won not with a bullet, but with a light. Caleb's story is a reminder to all of us that the old ways aren't the only ways. Sometimes it takes the fresh eyes of a child to see a solution that's been standing right in front of us all along. It proves that we don't have to choose between our heritage and our heart. If you believe that kindness and ingenuity can change the world, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen a problem solved in a way that surprised you? Let's talk about it. And if you want to see more stories of incredible animal rescues and the people who make them possible, click on the video on your screen right now. There are so many more heroes out there, and I can't wait to share their stories with you. Thanks for being part of our community. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.